On November 15, 1902, Italian anarchist Gennaro Rubino attempted to assassinate Leopold, who was riding in a royal cortege from a ceremony at the Church of St. Michael and St. Gudula in memory of his recently deceased wife, Marie Henriette. After Leopold's carriage passed, Rubino fired 3 shots at the procession. The shots missed Leopold but almost killed the king's Grand Marshal, Count Charles John Louis-Remont. Rubino was immediately arrested and subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment. He died in prison in 1918. The king replied after the attack to his senator, "My dear senator, if fate wants me shot, too bad." After the failed regicide, the king's security was questioned because the glass of the Landhaus was 2 centimeters thick. Elsewhere in Europe, the news of this assassination attempt was received with alarm. Heads of the state and the Pope sent telegrams to the king congratulating him for surviving the assassination attempt. Karma is defined as an ancient Indian concept that refers to an action, work, or deed and its effect or consequences. In Indian religion, the term more specifically refers to a principle of cause and effect, often descriptively called the principle of karma, wherein individuals' intent and actions cause influence their future effect. Good intent and good deeds contribute to good karma and happier rebirths, while bad intent and bad deeds contribute to bad karma and worse rebirths. In some scriptures, however, there is no link between rebirth and karma. Karma is often misunderstood as fate, destiny, or predetermination. Karma also refers to a conceptual principle that originated in India, often descriptively called the principle of karma, and sometimes the karma theory or law of karma. In the context of theory, karma is complex and difficult to define. Different schools of ethnology derive different definitions for the concept from ancient Indian texts. Their definition is in some combination of 1, causality that may be ethical or non-ethical; 2, ethicization, good or bad actions have consequences; and 3, rebirth. Other ethnologists include the definition that which explains the present circumstances of an individual with reference to his or her actions in the past. These actions may be those in a person's current life or, in some schools of Indian traditions, possibly actions from their past lives. Furthermore, the consequences may result in the current life or a person's future lives. The laws of karma operate independently of any deity or any process of divine judgment. Even still, the Mahabharata 29:122 reads, "As a man himself sows, so himself reaps. No man inherits the good or evil act of another man. The fruit is of the same quality as the action." I opened this live reading about the assassination attempt on King Leopold's life on November 15, 1902. 3 shots were fired at the king and they all missed him. His Grand Marshal, Count Charles, was almost killed in the attack, which was ironic because the Count had not committed, at this time period, the same amount of atrocities that King Leopold had. By 1902, King Leopold had already killed more than 12 million African bodies in what is now known as the DRC, or the Democratic Republic of the Congo. One of his most famous quotes was, "My dear senator, if fate wants me shot, too bad." This discussion is why you should not believe in the concept of karma. And in this discussion, I will use the life of King Leopold as a prime example as to why karma does not exist. Leopold II was born on April 9th, 1835, and he died on the 17th of December, 1909, at 74 years old. He was the second king of Belgians from 1865 to 1909 and the founder and sole owner of the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908, born in Brussels as the second but eldest surviving son of King Leopold I and Queen Louise. Leopold succeeded his father to the Belgian throne in 1865 and reigned for 44 years until his death, the longest reign of a Belgian monarch to date. He died without surviving legitimate sons. The current king of Belgians, Philippe, descends from his nephew and successor, Albert I. He is popularly referred to as the Builder King in Belgium in reference to the great number of buildings, urban projects, and public works he commissioned. Leopold was the founder and sole owner of the Congo Free State, a private colonial project undertaken on his own behalf as a personal union with Belgium. He used Henry Morton Stanley to help him lay claim to the Congo, the present-day Democratic Republic of the Congo. At the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, the colonial nations of Europe authorized his claim and committed the Congo Free State to him. Leopold ran the Congo, which he never personally visited, by using the mercenary force publique for his personal gain. He extracted a fortune from the territory initially by collection of ivory and after rise in the price of natural rubber in the 1890s by forced labor from the native population to harvest and process rubber. Leopold's administration was characterized by systemic brutality and atrocities in the Congo Free State, including forced labor, torture, murder, kidnappings, and the amputation of the hands of men, women, and children when the quota of rubber was not met. In one of the first uses of the term, George Washington Williams described the practices of Leopold's administration of the Congo Free State as crimes against humanity in 1890. These and other facts were established during Leopold's rule by eyewitness testimony, by on-site inspection, from international commissions of inquiry, by the investigative journalism and activism of E.D. Morale, and by the 1904 Casement Report. In 1890, when John Dunlop's invention of the inflatable bicycle tire launched a worldwide rubber boom, Leopold found himself ruling one of the greatest stretches of wild rubber in the world. He immediately began to cash in, implementing a brutal system of forced labor to bring harvested rubber back to Europe. Troops would enter a village, round up women and children, and hold them hostage until the men brought back a quota of rubber. Torture, rape, murder, and widespread death from rubber harvesting halved the Congo's population within 2 decades, while bringing Leopold a fortune of more than $1 billion in today's terms. So, because this live discussion is about karma, I would like to go into what King Leopold believed himself. We know historically that he was a Catholic. So, in the next part of this video, or the next part of this live, I want to get into what he felt was the right thing to do with these African peoples, what he felt God destined for him to do, and what happened because of it. So, we're going to get into the letter that he wrote to his missionaries in how they should treat the African. Also, this is very important before I go on. I know that you're saying, why is she talking about karma and why is she talking about karma not existing if this is a 4B channel? Why isn't she talking about 4B? Why isn't she talking about the 4B lifestyle? So here is my rationale for having videos like this. Everyone knows what 4B is. We already know the 4 tenets. That's easy. The reason why a lot of women have a hard time adopting a 4B lifestyle is because they are trapped in these masculine male ideologies, karma being one of them. The reason why many women won't give a fuck you to the patriarchy is because they're still looking out for the patriarchy and they don't believe they of themselves can exist outside of it. So this is the reason why we need to have these discussions surrounding karma, have these discussions surrounding the God of the Bible, the God of Islam, because as long as women believing these things, as long as women subscribe to karma, subscribe to the soul, subscribe to the spirit, subscribe to Jesus Christ, subscribe to Muhammad or Allah, the more entrapped we are in male ideologies and the nonsense that it is. That's all I wanted to say before we go on. And I really need for those who are listening to this to pay attention to this letter that I'm going to read you. The title of this letter is a letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to the colonial missionaries of 1883. This is when this letter was presented. And I just wanted to make mention that we know that the spiritual girly, because we spoke about the spiritual girly before, and her screaming that Christianity started in Africa, God is in Africa, the Bible, was first found in Africa. So Christianity and the love of Jesus is inherently African, because this is what they want you to believe. So I want to show you clear what the Christian so-called God allowed to happen to African people, because that's what you're going to hear from people who subscribe to the Bible, especially Black women. They will scream to you all day that the Bible and Christianity started in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is not very far from the Congo. If Christianity were in Ethiopia, what was the Ethiopian government doing about what King Leopold was doing in the African continent? Doesn't look like they were doing much. So when you hear people who claim that, well, no, the people of the Congo, they prayed. And King Leopold, he left because of that prayer. You can also say that that is a ridiculous concept. That is a ridiculous idea to have, considering that he already established what he needed to establish in order to bring his family wealth. This is not something that's just finished because King Leopold is no longer living. His family today is still taking off of the work that he put out when he died, by the time he died in 1909. So when you hear people who claim that karma exists, King Leopold and his life is a prime example as to why it doesn't. And we read earlier about his assassination attempt and even his death. King Leopold died a very old man in his bed. He didn't really have any problems. So when we talk about karma, I think it's important for us to be realistic. And this business of, you hear a lot of spiritual people say this, right? What goes around comes around. You're going to get yours for messing with me. We have to be weary of people who speak like that. And the reason why you have to be weary of people who speak like that is because you and I can see that when it comes to evil, when it comes to the villain on this planet, there is concrete longevity. There is longevity in the villain. There is longevity in the evil, longevity in people doing what's wrong and getting away with it. As a matter of fact, nothing happens to them. When we see the atrocities that some men commit against women and children, women sit there and they believe in karma. They believe in karma. And they've been conditioned to believe in karma. And I'm going to say this, and you may hear this again later on. Well, no, I'm going to give that to you later on. But for now, let's get into this letter. And I want you to keep in mind that the people that he's talking about in this letter did nothing to him. The people who he's talking about in this letter did not harm him. They did not chastise him. They did not go into his home and take anything away from him. But look at what he did and look at what he taught others to do to these African people who did nothing to him. So just keep that in mind, because we're talking about karma today. And the belief is that what goes around comes around. What you do that's bad will eventually come back to you. right? This is what the person who believes in karma preaches all the time. And they preach it from this seat of, I'm looking forward to something bad happening to you because you did something wrong to me. A lot of the times, nothing bad happens to the person who did something wrong to you. Nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. There are some women out there who've had horrible things happen to them in their lives, and they've watched people in their lives do horrible things to other people. And for some odd reason, that person who continues to do bad, nothing really happens to them. Nothing really happens to them. And it's usually the person who does not believe in karma that makes something happen to the individual who did something to them. Because when you don't believe in karma, a person like myself, you seek out your own vengeance. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire, above all, Belgian interest. Your principal objective and our mission in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God. This they know already. They speak and submit to Mongol, one Nabizia, one Nakumbo, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie, and to insult is bad. Have courage to admit it. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administration and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests in that part of the world. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground to avoid that they get interested in it and make you murderous competition and dream one day to overthrow you. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven. And it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I will make reference to their mystic systems and their war fetish, warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contrary to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonialists, so they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. Recite every day. Happy are those who are weeping, because the kingdom of God is for them. Convert always the blacks by using the whip. Keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in sign of recognition goats, chickens, or eggs every time you visit their villages, and make sure that the niggers never become rich. Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system which allows you to be good detectives, denouncing any black that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach the niggers to forget their heroes and to adore only ours. Never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner, even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. And this is what it says about the letter. The above speech, which shows the real intention of the Christian missionary journey in Africa, was exposed to the world by Mr. Mkakongo Mkwaki Bakogo, born in the Congo in 1915, and who, in 1935, while working in the Congo, brought a second-hand Bible from a Belgian priest who forgot the speech inside of the Bible, Dr. Okoro. We should also note that one, that all missionaries carried out and still carried out that mandate. We are only lucky to have found King Leopold's articulation of the aim of all Christian imperialist missionaries to Africa. Two, even the African converts who today manage the older churches in Africa, the priests, bishops, archbishops, cardinals, etc., of the Roman and Protestant sects, and especially also those who evangelize born again Christianity, still serve the same mandate, which is why they demonize African gods and angelicize African names and drop the names of African deities, which form parts of African names, and still attack and demolish the African shrines that have managed to survive. For example, Akija. Three, those Africans who voluntarily converted to Christianity before the colonial conquest, such as Alfonso I of Bakongo in the 15th century, probably did not discern the purpose of the brand of Christianity that was supplied to them, which was probably why they fell easy prey to the missionaries and the white traders and pirates who followed them. But their Japanese counterparts probably did discern the game even without access to some version of Leopold's letter. But even if the Japanese shoguns did not intuit what Leopold makes explicit, they clearly realized the danger of Japanese converts to Christianity, forming a fifth column within Japanese society and state, a fifth column loyal to their co-religionist in Europe. To rid Japan of that danger, in the late 16th century, the shoguns began their expulsion of Portuguese and Spanish missionaries on the grounds that they were forcing Japanese to become Christian, teaching their disciples to wreck temples, taking and trading slaves, etc. Then, in 1596, it became clear to the Japanese authorities that Christianization had been a prelude to the Spanish conquest of other lands, and it quickly dawned on them that a fifth column loyal to Rome and controlled by the priests of foreign religion was clear and present danger to the sovereignty of a newly unified Japan. And just to pause here for a minute, this is so fascinating to see that the Japanese took these measures to protect their own people from Christianity. So it continues and it says, soon after the persecution and suppression of Japanese Christians began, early in the 17th century, sensing the danger from a creed that taught obedience to foreign priests rather than the Japanese authorities, all missionaries were ordered to leave and all Japanese were ordered to register at the Buddhist temples. While Japanese Christians took part in a rebellion, foreign priests were executed, the Spanish were expelled, and Japanese Christians were forbidden to travel abroad. After another rebellion, largely by Christians, was put down, the Japanese Christians were suppressed and their descendants were put under close state surveillance for centuries thereafter. In the 1640s, all Japanese suspected of being Christians were ruthlessly exterminated. Thus did Japan by 1650 save itself from the first European attempt to mentally subvert, conquer, and colonize it. Number four, the African captives who were taken abroad and enslaved, and the Africans at home after the European conquest, having already been forcibly deprived of their autonomy, were in no political position rather, to resist Christianization. Thus, the Christianity still practiced in all of the African American diaspora, just as that in the African homeland, since the start of the 20th century, continues to carry out the Leopoldian mandate. Thanks to a century or more of this Leopold mandate missionary mind control, African Christians are not an activist, self helping, economically engaged, politically resolute, let alone militant bunch. Hence, they're putting up with all manner of mistreatment and exploitation by their misrulers, white and black. The most they are disposed to do to their misrulers is to admonish them to fear God, as one protester miserable placard read in last week's Lagos demonstration against the latest of murderous fuel price hikes by the OBJ misgovernment. The idea of an uprising to tame their misrulers is alien to the religiously opiated frame of mind of the Nigerian. The lesson in contrast between an African that the Christian mercenaries brainwashed and subverted and a Japan where this brainwashing and subversion was forcibly prevented is stark and clear. What then must Africans of today begin to do to save themselves from brainwashing by their white world enemies here on earth? That is the question. So remember in my last video, we spoke about the spiritual girlies and we spoke about the people who are out there and they speak on the laws of the universe and all of these things. And then they claim that they're not religious. They don't believe in the Bible. These laws just came up and out to be. So this is what I wanted to do to show you that we said this before. The spiritual girly, her template and her swag is taken from the God of the Bible. It's taken from the Bible itself. So I wanted to read to all of you scriptures from the Bible that match this belief and karma because it doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from everywhere. And with all male ideologies, you can see a pattern. There's always a pattern. And the pattern at the belly of all male ideologies is for the victim to never seek their own vengeance. So let me just read this to you, okay? And this is what it says. What does the Bible say about karma? Although karma is not a term actually used in the Bible, it is an idea from Hinduism and Buddhism that holds similarities to biblical themes. Karma is defined as the sum of a person's actions in this and previous states of existence, viewed as deciding their fate in future existences. And again, there's no proof of this. When people claim to you that they were piano players in their lifetime, or they were astronauts in one lifetime, or like I said before, for the spiritual girly who flies over the moon every second Sunday, you just have to ask her to prove it. And the conversation is done. Well, for me anyway, because a lot of the times they can't prove it. And it also says this relates to the judgment of God in scripture and the tenet of Christianity that we ultimately reap what we have sown. James chapter 3, verse 18. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Job chapter 4, verse 8. As I have observed, those who plow evil and those who sow trouble reap it. John 3:36. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life, but whoever rejects the Son will not see life, for God's wrath remains on them. Matthew chapter 25, verse 46. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteousness to eternal life. Matthew chapter 26, verse 52. Put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Proverbs 11, verse 27. Whoever seeks good finds favor, but evil comes to one who searches for it. Proverbs 26, verse 27. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. So those are just examples from the Bible that verify what I say about karma. The scriptures suggest, similar to the ideology that suggests that if something were to happen to you, you should wait on a vehicle to deliver that vengeance from your own person. So in order to keep your hands clean, you can't readily go out and harm someone who did something to you. So what you do is that you lean on alternative vehicles to deliver your hurt, if that makes any sense. So you're hurting, someone hurt you, and you won't go out there to kind of fix that hurt. You have all of this hurt and you have nothing to do with it. So your best bet as someone who believes in karma or someone who believes in God is to verbalize this hurt and to hope and pray that someone or something happens to the person who hurt you. The goal is for your thoughts and your angst and your feelings to go back to the person who caused you harm. This is why you hear so many people speaking or screaming about karma, and what goes around comes around. And a lot of the times we never see the come around. We've never seen the come around. And this is what you see present in all of these male ideologies. They all teach the same thing. When we research Hinduism, when we research Christianity, when we research Islam, there is always this premise that you have to wait to get vengeance. You have to wait to get your lick back. You have to wait to be redeemed. Meanwhile, there you sit waiting, and the person who hurt you is off to the next person, is off to the next situation, is off to the next one. Similar to King Leopold. King Leopold did not stop until he already killed 10 million people. He killed 10 million people. He made $1 billion. He established his family to forever be in power in Belgium. And right now, if you went to Belgium, you know what you can find when you go to the tourist sites in some of the most exquisite places in that area? You will find baby chocolate hands. Baby chocolate hands. So this is a country that banked on the African. And in mockery of that banking on, they sell these baby chocolate hands to depict, or I believe, to make fun of the fact that one of King Leopold's tactics to make sure that the quota was being filled in these rubber plantations was to cut off the hands of women and children and to maim them. This is what's happening to this very day, and no one really gives a shit. So when you hear people and they constantly talk about karma and they constantly talk about their ancestors and what their ancestors could do and what goes around comes around, where are the ancestors to these African people when it comes to King Leopold's family today? Where are they? Why don't we see anything happening? Exactly. Karma does not exist. And the villain would say that karma would only exist to the idiot who believes in it. This means that it only takes for one person to suggest that something bad is going to happen to you, and for you, the idiot, to internalize that and therefore to make that something bad happen in your reality. If you didn't internalize what was said to you, then nothing can happen. Nothing. And no one can tell me that this is not something that men already know. Men already know this, but it benefits them to perpetuate the idea of karma, to perpetuate the idea that vengeance is mine, declares the Lord, to perpetuate the idea that Allah will avenge me, Allah will take care of it. Because if men shoot that belief out to all of the women and children listening to them, then the women and children never rise up to do anything against the man who's doing atrocious behavior to all of them. If I were the villain, my first order of business would be to teach people about karma. That way, I can get away with what I want to get away with and leave you with your prayers and leave you with your belief in karma. And for the spiritual girly, leave you with your candles and leave you with your herbs and leave you with your tarot cards in your birth charts, in your meetings and your readings. And there I am off to the next one. There I am off to the next one, and nothing will ever happen to me. You know why? Because I don't internalize what someone else told me. That is the mindset of the villain. Nothing can happen to the villain. So when we speak about, or when I'm speaking about King Leopold, and this is why I love this story about King Leopold, because this is a prime example of karma not existing. And there's so many other instances in history where we could see karma not existing, because if the notion is that, if you're a good person, then good will come to you, we already see right there that karma can't exist. Because in this example, because we're going to stay on King Leopold, why did that happen to the African? What did the African do to deserve that? Why did no one on the African continent, around the globe, say anything? And this is in regards to all the atrocities, all of the crimes against humanity that we've seen. What was done? Nothing. You act, and then it's over. And the person who believes in karma, or the person who believes in God, they sit there and they pray. People right now in Congo are still praying. People right now in Congo are still Christians, despite learning about the letter, learning about King Leopold and how he thought about Black people, learning about all of the things that they know today for sure. They don't care about it. All they are waiting on is for the Lord to finally set them free. And King Leopold died in 1909, and you still have Christians in the Congo still praying and waiting for God to avenge them. And this is just some of my writings I wrote. So for the spiritual girl, the vehicle that she leans on to deliver her vengeance from being hurt while keeping her hands clean, because that's important, is karma. And the vehicle that the religious girl uses to deliver her hurt back to the person who hurt her is the belief that God will take care of it. Vengeance is mine, declares the Lord. Spiritual women or religious women, they lean on things outside of themselves to deliver their hurt back to people. And I've always sat down and thought about how effective this is when it comes to male violence, and the fact that women and children, they go through so much when it comes to the male pattern of behavior on the planet. And it's so interesting to see how many men don't actually believe in some of these teachings that they created. These teachings that these men put out there, they don't necessarily believe them. Men don't believe in karma. Men also don't believe in God, but they want to make sure that their victims or their potential victims believe in God. Because if the potential victim believes in God, then he's set in the clear. He can do whatever he wants, and all the potential victim will do is, she's going to pray it away. Or for the spiritual girly, she's gonna, go to the botanical in the Bronx and buy herself a candle. What else can she really do? Right? She has to, if she's spiritual, her running to a candle and running to her altar is how she gets her vengeance. Meanwhile, the person who hurt her, he's already in Poughkeepsie, right? So there was a comment under one of the videos, and it said something to the effect of how women are all waking up and women are spiritually connected. And I was wrong in saying that there is no spirit and there is no soul, and how look at how many women are connected and they're waking up and they're decentering men. And that's such a crock of shit to me, considering that we all have cell phones. And the reason why so many women are talking about decentering men and talking about 4B or whatever is because you have a cell phone. You are on social media. Social media delivers messages via algorithm. You're not connected, you're just getting the same message because of that factor. Women on the planet right now don't even like each other. So this built this belief that we're all connected and we're all waking up. Yeah, that's nonsense, because I said this before, your biggest enemy will be another woman. And I also wrote, what are they going to do? One will talk about God and demons and the prevalence of evil and that nonsense concept of spiritual warfare. And the other one will dance around a fire pit, rub some herbs in her hands, light a candle, and cry to all of her friends that she was harmed. A smart friend would ask the spiritual girl, why didn't you see that harm coming? Another smart friend would ask the religious girl, why didn't your prayer work? Why didn't your prayer let you up on one that something was coming your way. Because again, these are the claims of people who say that they have this magical power outside of themselves and they are privy to things that normal, regular degulars like you and I don't have access or privy knowledge to. So when it comes to karma, I told you, and I'm going to say this before, the spiritual girlie is better than you. And she wants you to believe in karma because you believing in karma makes you scared to do something to her. And she needs for you to be in fear to not harm her because that threat of, well, if you do something to me, something is going to come and get you is what keeps a lot of women silent. So those are just my thoughts on karma. If I were a villain, my first order of business would be to teach all people about karma. That way I get away with murder. I get away with doing what I want to do. And people would just sit down and believe that, something bad may one day happen to me. And there I go, scotch free, nothing bad happening. Get into the comment section. Let me know what your thoughts are about karma. Let me know what your thoughts are about the soul and about the spirit. I love all of the messages that I get. I also love the nasty emails that I get as well. I love the fact that these spiritual girlies are very triggered. The witches are very triggered. The brute men from Algeria. Were they from Algeria? Algeria or Afghanistan? One of them. And the women, you should know that what's happening with the women in Afghanistan, they banned those women, those girls from continuing going to school. They banned them from riding bicycles. They banned them from working. They banned those women to, basically, they banished them to the house. A lot of those women can't leave the house. So if you are a spiritual girly and you hate my guts, take that hatred and cast a spell for the women in Afghanistan who really need your help. If you're a bad spiritual witch and you have these powers, have your ancestors help women who really need help. You shouldn't waste time hating me because nothing is going to happen to me. But since you are magical and you are powerful, what you should do, or what you should take your time doing, is to light your candles for women and girls who really need your help. And the women in Afghanistan, the women in Iran, the women in Algeria, they really need your help when it comes to liberation from Islam. So, get into the comment section. Let me know what you think about the soul and the spirit, and like, share, subscribe. Thank you for listening. I appreciate all of you here, even the people who don't want to be here. Thank you for coming anyway. Thank you for the viewership. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. See ya.